This is the CineSnob Podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 225 of the CineSnob Podcast. I'm Jerrod Kingery.
I'm Cody Villafania.
And it's been over a month, Cody, since we've done one of these. Didn't you go out of town or something? We did the Eternals, right? And then didn't you leave town? Like you went to New York?
Yeah, that's right. I was in New York for a little while.
And then we just got lazy and
yeah, they call it the Big Apple, I don't know if you knew that.
New York.
Yes.
I've heard that somewhere.
Yeah. Also the Windy City as well.
I've heard it gets very windy there. You saw some late night tapings, right? You saw the late night with
Seth Meyers.
Seth Meyers. Before, I'm curious now, since the New York is shutting down again as of last night's SNL, where they abandoned a live audience and had like 2 cast members and brought in Tom Hanks and Tina Fey for some reason. Mm-hmm. Maybe you went at the last good time in New York.
Yeah. I mean, let's just say I know some people with COVID in New York right now. So it seems to be getting hot and heavy.
You know Colin Jost.
Yeah,
apparently.
Me and the Jostmeister.
But by the way, you are in a hotel now.
Yes.
Clearly, you are you're getting ready to go. When is the game? It's the UTSA bowl game, and I'm not going to make fun of it because I know that irritates you guys. But it's the fuck. What is it? I almost said it like it.
The Tropical Smoothie Cafe Frisco Bowl.
And when is that? Is that tomorrow night?
It's Tuesday night.
Tuesday night. Oh wow! So you're there to soak up the sights in Frisco.
Yeah. Well, I have to work a whole day tomorrow, and so it was either drive after work tomorrow for 5-6 hours, or come in a couple days early. So
that ride to Dallas is a bitch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, without fail, passing through Waco is just a nightmare.
Is 35 still torn up through Waco?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't been up there in a couple of years, and it was fucked up then. So what is your expectation for this bowl game? Is this the first UTSA bowl game, or have they played in bowl games before?
No, this is the third.
Okay.
So the expectation, hopefully, is getting that first win, but as the week is churning on, more and more UTSA players are declaring for the draft and sitting out for the game. And so,
I mean, the God damn it, Tropical Smoothie Cafe. What the fuck is the Tropical Smoothie Cafe? Is that a thing?
Yeah, it's like a big chain of smoothie places that has like food and stuff.
Tropical Smoothie Cafe. Is there one nearby?
There's multiple in San Antonio. I'm assuming there's multiple in Austin too.
Let's see. Let's see what the nearest Tropical Smoothie Cafe is to me. I'm going to enter my zip code. Hold on.
It's going to be like down the street.
Yeah. It surprisingly is down the street. So
of course.
It's about let's see. I can't zoom in on this map. There we go. What the fuck? It's like it's less than like 2 miles away. Son of a
there
bitch.
You go.
I had no idea.
I've had
what the fuck is this?
there.
What the fuck is this thing? They have quesadillas, sandwiches. Why is it called Tropical? I don't understand.
We have a Twitch watcher. Also,
hi.
it's a national place, man.
They're all over. I assume that's Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Florida. Wow. Full stop shop. Shit. Color me surprised. I mean, that's an up and coming bowl game, I assume, or not. I don't know.
It's one of those places where like there were none, and then there were like 300 everywhere. Like those rapidly expanding chains.
It's a very misleading name for this menu.
Yeah.
Like Tropical Smoothie Cafe. Like I assume that it's just going to be smoothies. Are there even smoothies?
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. I see. Okay. So, but you can get it like a quesadilla and a flatbread.
I've had their wraps before. They're not too bad.
Well, I understand that there's a little indignity to this bowl selection for UTSA, or have you all gotten over that by now?
Yeah, it's fine. I'm over it.
What was the record this year?
Right now they're 12-1
Okay, so that's clearly the best record ever so far
for
in
them.
history.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, have fun at the Tropical Smoothie Cafe. Is it Frisco Tropical? How does it? What's the order?
Tropical Smoothie Cafe Frisco Bowl.
Okay.
It's
good.
being played in a soccer stadium.
Oh, the Dallas FC stadium.
Yep.
What does that hold?
Like 17,000-17,000. That was part of the indignation, is that
Okay.
the bowl that we wanted to get into holds like, that stadium holds like 50,000 people, and this one holds like 16 or 17, which is, by the way, it's completely sold out.
I would assume, yeah.
Yeah, and it's going to be, if you watch the bowl games this weekend so far, there's like nobody in the stands, like nobody's traveling, and so this will be one of the first bowl games where like there's going to be a huge contingent of fans there, because they're playing San Diego State and they're not coming. So
isn't that always the way though? Isn't it? Don't they like to get like a local team that can travel easily? Or am I thinking of...
Yeah, typically speaking, the people who run the bowls do. The problem with UTSA was that so the conference that UTSA in has a contract with ESPN, and ESPN gets first dibs at whatever team they want to book the bowl. And so ESPN took first dibs at UTSA, which knocked out all of the more, because ESPN owns this bowl. So
okay,
instead of just owning the TV rights, they actually own the bowl. So
and they sold the naming rights to the Tropical Smoothie Cafe.
It's better than the Duke's Mayo Bowl.
I don't know. Is it?
Yeah, it's mayonnaise.
What's the worst? What's the worst bowl name right now?
Oh, that's a good question.
Worst bowl names 2021. So let's see.
Last night was the Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl. I know that.
That's a thing. Beef O'Brady's Bowl. This is like the 9 worst bowl games in CFB college football history ranked. The Beef O'Brady's Bowl. Do you remember there was a?
Oh yeah, on Bandera.
Yeah, I ate there once.
Me too.
A few times actually. It was not bad, but
yeah.
So there was the Bad Boy Mowers Bowl.
I'm looking at this year. There's the famous Idaho Potato Bowl.
What a weird system this has become.
Yeah.
Anyway. Well, good luck in the Frito-Lay chili cheese bowl, whatever it is. The Tax Act Bowl. Okay, Tax Act. Easy Point Hawaii Bowl. Tax Act Texas Bowl. Oh. There's a Tropical Smoothie Cafe Frisco Bowl. Wasabi Fenway Bowl. What? Those are 2 words I don't expect to go together. Let's see. Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl. Yeah, that's a good one. Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. Not a good time for Tony the Tiger.
Oh, is he canceled?
Kellogg's.
Oh, yeah.
Kellogg's is, yeah.
The San Diego County Credit Union Holiday Bowl.
That's a very local credit union. Oh, the Barstool Sports Bowl. That'll be a bro fest.
Oh, boy.
Lending Tree Bowl. Trans Perfect Music City Bowl. What is Trans Perfect, I wonder?
I don't know.
New Era Pinstripe Bowl. That's pretty cool. The Cheez-It Bowl. Shit. Duke's Mayo Bowl. Outback Bowl. That sounds awesome. Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. That's been around a while. PlayStation Fiesta Bowl. All-State
Every
Cheer
player
Bowl
is getting a
Capital One
PS5 in that bowl.
Oh, for real?
Mm-hmm.
Or not? Oh, that's
yeah,
cool,
for real.
I guess. Yeah, our Twitch commenter is very adamant about abolishing the BCS and getting a legit playoff system. I don't care about college football.
Well, if Cincinnati can do any damage this year, it'll make a good case for it. But we'll see.
Yeah, I
Right,
don't know
Jerrod?
what that means. Yeah, I don't know. Sure, whatever, man. Cool. Yeah,
We got a lot to talk about today, though.
Yeah, so we might as well get started, right? It's been a while. We're not going to go over any of the stuff we missed, so you won't hear our take on Ghostbusters Afterlife. I don't think you even saw that, did you?
I did not see it.
We're not going to talk about Dune. We're not going to talk about West Side Story, any of the other things that were released. But we are going to talk about the biggest movie of the year. So let's go ahead and get started on reviews.
Here are this week's reviews.
First up, we have Spider-Man No Way Home.
Ever since I got bit by that spider, I've only had 1 week where my life has felt normal. That was when you found out.
When you botched that spell where you wanted everyone to forget that Peter Parker's Spider-Man, we started getting some visitors. From every universe. Hello, Peter. You're not Peter Parker.
I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Dr. Otto Octavius.
Wait, no, seriously, what's your actual name?
There are others out there. We need to send them back. So, Scooby-Doo this crap.
You know, all this is kind of your mess. I know a couple of magic words myself, starting with the word please.
Please, Scooby-Doo this crap.
This is, of course, oops, I lost Cody, son of a gun. Here we go. Yay, Cody's back.
Sorry.
It's all good. This is, of course, the third entry in the MCU-connected Spider-Man series from Sony. Just a fair warning, we're going to be pretty spoiler-heavy talking about this. So if you haven't seen the movie and you're one of the people that means you're one of the few people that didn't see it this weekend. Huge opening. Cody, tell us a little bit about Spider-Man No Way Home and what you thought of it.
Yeah, so it's sort of the culmination of everything that's kind of happened thus far in the MCU, and bringing in elements of a lot of different properties and the multiverse, and like I'm sure I haven't finished Loki, but I have to assume that this probably Loki opened the door for this kind of thing to happen, and so. A lot of the trailers thus far had shown, clips of some of the villains from previous Spider-Man movies, including Alfred Molina as Doc Ock and Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin. And so, there was a lot of, a lot of guessing as to what was going to happen with, the other characters, who else was in play for this, for this movie. So again, from this point forward, we're going full spoiler talk. If you haven't seen the movie and don't want to know what happens or who pops up, leave now. I tried to tag it heavily in Twitch, so
it's your own fault.
If we ruin it for you, it is your own fault. You have been heavily warned.
Yeah.
So there has been months and months of denial from Andrew Garfield about being in this movie, and I feel really bad for him, because I over the break I watched Tick Tick Boom, and that's a very legit Oscar nominated caliber performance that he's been trying to push, and everyone just keeps asking the poor guy about Spider-Man. I feel so bad for him. And a lot of the hype was are we going to see the 3 iterations of Spider-Man come into play, which we do, and we do in a way that I think is sort of, I think it is satisfying, but I think for me, a lot. This movie is excessive, and I think for me, the first time, including Avengers Endgame, where the Marvel Cinematic Universe has felt excessive to me, where it just feels like there's too much happening. It's just a lot. And I think, I was really looking forward to this movie for a lot of different reasons. And we both generally like the MCU quite a bit, like we're fans. We have a sub podcast or a podcast about it that we sort of left on the back burner, but the whole movie sort of hinges on this idea that everyone finds out that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and there's this sort of like he starts getting accosted, and like he can't do anything in public anymore, and then it's starting to affect his girlfriend MJ and his aunt and everyone around him, and so he goes to Doctor Strange to try and have him do a spell to make everyone forget that he's Spider-Man, which in the process rips a hole in the whatever multiverse, and everyone who knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man is now let into this universe. And so what we see is the cavalcade of villains from other Spider-Man movies, and it is to its detriment, in my opinion, the villain from every single Spider-Man movie that happened prior to the MCU, which gets me to complaint number one. I see why they did it, but I don't think you need like the Lizard and Sandman in this movie, because like I get it if you're building a Sinister Six, but there's only 5 of them, so like what the fuck are you doing here? Like,
right.
And not only that, but like, there's 2 MVPs of this movie in my eyes, and one of them is Willem Dafoe, who is like going all out Green Goblin crazy. He could have very easily phoned this in like Alfred Molina kind of did.
I liked Alfred Molina personally, but
I think he was phoning it in. And he even said in an interview that what brought him back was the money. Obviously. But Willem Dafoe is going full on crazy, like just as crazy as Norman Osborn was in the first Spider-Man movie, and he's a lot of fun, I think, and gets a lot of great moments. Here's what I'll say, and this is where the movie kind of fell apart for me and kind of aggravated me throughout the entire runtime, and it really hurt the way that I felt about the movie in the end, is that they have this idea that they're going to like capture the villains and then send them back to their own universes, and Peter finds out that all of them died fighting Spider-Man in their universe. And so Peter has an idea that he wants to try and fix things, or fix them, so that maybe they have a different outcome. And for me, this is idiotic. I cannot get past what a stupid idea this is, and how naive it is of Peter. Even if you concede the idea that he's a kid, even if you have concede the idea that his stuff has been a little bit maybe more innocent than some of the intensity of the other Spider-Man movies, we're talking about, in this world, a post-Thanos world in which a villain, a supervillain, wiped out half of the population, including himself, for 5 years. We're talking about a guy who his mentor and idol died fighting, and yet his first response when he knows that they died fighting Spider-Man is like, yeah, let's fix them, as if and then he literally lets them all out. Like, what did he think was going to happen in that moment? And also, I think that also it doesn't track for me that Doctor Strange would do this spell that was that dangerous, and it doesn't track for me that Peter fights Doctor Strange to try and fix and heal these villains, and when Doctor Strange confronts him about it, Doctor Strange is like, that's their fate, they have to accept their fate. Nothing about the fact that, hey, these guys are evil villains who previously tried to kill Peter Parker. You know what's happened with that Thanos guy. and so the rest of the movie I spent kind of pissed off and annoyed at Peter Parker, the character, because now how many people are going to be hurt or killed as a direct result of his decision here? And it turns out one in particular is where they sort of pull the old Wrath of Khan reversal here with a with the scene where in this universe a certain character delivers a seminal line on the day of their demise, and you get that, and then of course this leads to the final act where we do get Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire back on screen. My crowd popped like no other during that moment, and I think the point from when those three show up till the end of the movie just objectively is entertaining. It's fun.
Yeah.
You get some really cool shots of like three Spider-Men going around. You get to see each element of their take on the character kind of pop off screen. And so that brings me to MVP number 2, which is Andrew Garfield. And I think this is really good for him because his Spider-Man movies were not good. He was good as Peter Parker, and he made a great, really like sarcastic, like wise ass, and got that part of Peter really down in his movies. But the movies were just bad, and I think he gets a lot of redemption. I think he gets a lot of his version of Peter Parker gets a very specific piece of redemption. That's a nod to some of his films, and I think that those parts are fine. But for me, like I said, there's a lot of excess. I think there's too many villains, and for me personally, like I said, the story that is at the crux of why all of this happens, which is what happens with the villains, to me just does not make any sense for that character, for this story. I wish they would have found a better way in here, and so I really was quite bothered by this, because again, I can let it go where if this happened like pre-Thanos or something like that, but after that, and after the trauma of that, and I know it's a comic book movie, but these movies want to be rooted in realism and realistic feelings and characters doing things that make sense. To me, it made no sense, and it actually took away from my enjoyment of the movie. And so I think this is the least good of the Tom Holland MCU Spider-Man movies, because the previous two I liked quite a bit.
I disagree slightly on the motivation of it, because we talked about this a little bit, you and I, the other day after you saw it, and this Spider-Man iteration hasn't killed any of his villains, right? Like Vulture is still alive. Mysterio killed himself essentially, and that's the inciting incident for this movie, is the idea that Spider-Man is being called a killer by J. Jonah Jameson and the Daily Bugle thing, and the idea that these villains, as soon as they send them back, they're going to die. And I think that's the part that really drives the characterization of Peter Parker in this movie. Whether or not it's a smart decision plot wise, I mean, I get it, but I think it's well motivated for the character. I do agree, though, that there are too many villains. You've got Willem Dafoe, who does a really great job, I think, at like showing the pathos of this character too. Like there's a scene where he, finds his way to Aunt May's charity, and he's disturbed because he's living this psychosis, I guess. Then you've got Alfred Molina as Doc Ock, who I really wanted more of, who disappears, who gets essentially turned. He gets fixed in the middle of the movie, and then
weird story. Yeah.
Then fucks off until the climax. Well, where'd he go? Like, what was he doing? And
just
then
hanging out.
You have a, I guess, soft reboot of Electro, that Jamie Foxx just sort of looks like Jamie Foxx now, and not like he's from a 90s movie with the comb over and bad teeth or whatever.
Yeah, which is weird because everyone else looks and acts the same except for Jamie Foxx, who's like, I'm not doing that shit again.
I guess that was it. And they, like, one of the characters mentions it. I think it's Lizard mentions it. Also, so one of the things that really bothered me was, first of all, the inclusion of Lizard and Sandman. First of all, Sandman wasn't killed by Spider-Man in Spider-Man 3. He was allowed to escape to be with his daughter or whatever. I don't remember what the fuck happened to Lizard in Amazing Spider-Man. I never saw Amazing Spider-Man 2 for some reason. But those two parts, Lizard and Sandman, Lizard played by Rhys Ifans in Amazing Spider-Man, and Thomas Hayden Church played Sandman in Spider-Man 3, clearly were not, those actors were clearly not playing those roles this time.
Yes, they get long enough for them to transform into their human beings, and for 20 seconds, and then that's it.
I really think that was old footage. I don't think either of them participated in this film at all.
I mean, I think Thomas Hayden Church was doing voiceover at the very least. I don't think that was Rhys Ifans or whatever his name is. Voice.
I don't think it was either of their voices. I really don't.
I think it was Thomas Hayden Church. I'm gonna look
that.
Up,
I would be shocked if that was, because it was like he spends the entire movie as a Sandman, essentially. So those two villains are like, the Lizard is treated. Those two villains have the least to do. Electro is the one who he's the one who turns. He's the one who doesn't want to give up the power. So that makes enough sense to me to keep him around. Doc Ock was the one who, frankly, before he died, turned good. Like, he sacrificed himself in Spider-Man 2. Anyway, long story short, there's too many villains. I get wanting to represent every Spider-Man movie, though you don't have obviously they didn't bring back James Franco for obvious reasons, but they also left out Topher Grace's Venom. If you even remember that happened. Anyway, so what was I getting at? Oh yeah, so I think the Endgame comparisons. What?
I thought you were gonna. I thought you were going to say the end game of the movie.
No,
okay.
I think the end game comparisons are apt in that this is a major crowd pleaser of a movie.
Oh yeah,
like this is pure, like, unfettered fan service, and I don't think that's a bad thing. But I think it is still the weakest of the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies because of it, and I don't think it's a bad movie. There are, in addition to the Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire cameos, we also get Charlie Cox returning as Daredevil, as Matt Murdock, which I suspected after Hawkeye brought back Vincent D'Onofrio last week. Like, it's a cool little moment, and it gets totally overshadowed by everything else in the movie, and that's understandable. But it's so crowd pleasing that it doesn't have to make a lot of sense, I think.
Yeah, and I just wanted to touch too on the emotional moment, which again, we're spoiler talking, right? So like, you know, the reversal that I said is that, you know, and this is brought up by Tobey Maguire, because Tobey Maguire says the great power, great responsibility line, and it says that's what Uncle Ben said to him the day he died. And so in this, you get Marissa Tomei's Aunt May delivering that line before she dies in the movie at the hands of Green Goblin. And again, that moment, I think, is really well acted by Marissa Tomei and really well acted by Tom Holland. But again, I'm watching that and I'm like, Peter's a fucking idiot. He let Green Goblin loose, and then he went and killed.
But that's what happens in all of these movies, though. Like, that's the inciting incident for Spider-Man in the first Spider-Man.
But I understand that, and so this is why I say I concede that idea. But Tom Holland, but Peter Parker in this movie is aware that the people that he let loose are villains. When what's his name? Tobey Maguire lets the guy go in the first Spider-Man movie or whatever. Like, he doesn't know that that's going to happen or that happened or whatever. But this Peter Parker is fully aware that these are villains, and he knows what a villain is, clearly, who died trying to fight different versions of him. And they're still evil, they're still attacking him, and they're still looking for Peter Parker as they come to this world. And for me, it's just a bridge too far for me. I could not get in behind it.
I get it. I get what you're saying. I bought into it because of the characterization. And I think Tom Holland does a really great job in this movie. And I think Zendaya and Jacob Batalon are really great too. I think it's a nice kind of. It's almost like a buddy movie at certain points.
There's a great joke and funny thing later in the movie where it's pointed out to his character, to Jacob's character, that Spider-Man's best friend has betrayed him in each of those iterations, and I found that was really funny. I really like the way that that's played.
Yeah, and I think the like you said, I agree. What was his name? Andrew Garfield is one of the MVPs of this movie. He just seems to be having a lot of fun, untethered from the crap that those movies were, and it it's not really I don't blame none of the blame lies at his feet. I think that they tried too hard to reboot those movies, like redoing the origin story and everything.
Andrew Garfield was a great Peter Parker in the worst of those Spider-Man movies.
Yeah. I felt a little tinge of like my age seeing just how old Tobey Maguire looked. I know he was very old when he played Spider-Man as a teenager, but man, he looked very old. I liked that he was a more world-weary Spider-Man, I guess. Again, a lot of that stuff didn't make sense either. Like, why did you pull him from his 40s as opposed to him from his 20s, fighting Doc Ock?
Yeah, but I hats off to the subtle semen jokes that were in there.
Yeah. I mean, again, this movie it's so big. And I mean, Spider-Man is the biggest of all these heroes, right? Like, talk about the Avengers all you want. Talk about, something like Batman all you want. It's always been Spider-Man that's the top of the heap when it comes to superhero movies, and this is the biggest one of them all. I think it's the weakest of the Tom Holland ones, just like you. But it's so big and so just packed with fan service that it's not going to matter one single bit. And I think that's fine. I think it's fine. I think it's, as far as the larger MCU is concerned, it takes a pretty bold step at the end to kind of erase everything about these movies and sort of reposition him as like a Spider-Man just starting out, which I think was one of my beefs with the movies before. Was there were a lot of Spider-Man playing like second fiddle to someone, like mentorship wise. Like it was very Tony Stark heavy in the first one. You had Mysterio as kind of de facto mentor in the second one.
And now he's literally playing one of 3 Spider-Man that appear on screen.
Yeah. I mean, it's not. It doesn't make a lot of sense if you try to break it down, but neither did Endgame. Let's face it. But it's so much fun. I think it transcends it. But anyway, what's your grade for Spider-Man No Way Home, Cody?
Well, again, I don't think that I've ever seen a movie that has more fan service. I think because of that, this movie is bulletproof. I mean, like, this movie will be beloved by anyone who considers himself a Marvel fan because there is so much like fan service candy here. And so I realize that my opinion will be a very uncommon one. But I don't think it's all that great. I'm giving it a C+. I don't think that I don't think that it falls into that category. I was angry a lot of the movie.
Wow. I'm gonna give it a solid B. I think it's fun. I think it's not perfect. It's not the best one. It's not even the best of the series, but goddamn, does it get fun sometimes. All right, let's move on to our next movie, Nightmare Alley.
Mr. Carlyle, come in.
Slow day.
Have you not heard? We're at war.
I'm aware. How did you know it was me?
What brings you here?
You left me your card, didn't you?
So, here we are.
Oh, not me. I never drink. Microphones.
That's right. Wire recorder.
You recording this?
No. My office is wired to record all analysis sessions.
You got a smoother line, but you run a racket. Same as me.
Is that what this is?
Poor Guillermo Del Toro can get no respect. He wins a fucking Oscar for a genre movie, and his studio throws from the same. This Searchlight Pictures, now owned by Disney, schedules this movie up against their own interest. It's not their movie; it's a Sony movie, but they have an interest.
The third biggest weekend of all time.
Schedules this movie against fucking Spider-Man: No Way Home. Clearly cannibalizing its audience. But Cody, tell us about Nightmare Alley and what you thought of it.
Yeah, so poor Guillermo Del Toro here, because he was really thrown to the wolves on this one, and unfortunately so what you have here. So I know that this is based on both, I think, a book and a movie that were both produced in the 40s.
It's based on I think Tyrone Power was in the first film version of this.
Yeah, and it's a bit a take on where a sort of like a drifter becomes a grifter. If I had to say anything about it, I just came up with that on the spot.
There you go.
So Bradley Cooper's character is kind of this mysterious figure who wanders his way into like a carnival sideshow type of thing, where they're as carnies do, they're sort of doing entertaining scams on people, running their shows and performances and stuff, and he ends up learning enough to want to go on his own, and he goes on his own and takes it to the higher level, and then there's something like sinister lurking, I guess. We'll leave it at that. We won't spoil this one. There's a few things important about this. I mean, I like Del Toro. I'm not like a Del Toro mega fan. I thought The Shape of Water was good. Nothing amazing for me. I prefer, I think my favorite of his is probably Devil's Backbone. In terms of that kind of the sort of horror ghost stuff, I think he does pretty well. And this is more like a noir kind of thing, where it's like a noir / psychological thriller, I would say.
No, there's no monsters in it, if you
right,
want to break it down like that.
Yeah. And I think, first and foremost, this movie is just fucking gorgeous. It is, the production design, particularly in the first half of the movie where they are at the carnival, just looks incredible. It looks like a carnival out of the 40s. The setting is great. The cinematography is incredible. All of the practical effects of things looks great. The movie is just visually stunning. It's got so much eye candy in it, and I think the movie is worth seeing just for those elements. But what you get is, I think, a first half of the movie that I found really intriguing, where you see Bradley Cooper's character really get interested in the grift of it all. And I think Bradley Cooper's doing really great work. I think it's a really great performance from him. I think you get some great supporting stuff. I think Willem Dafoe, again, is really great in a very small part. A lot of really small parts from actors who do a great job. Toni Collette is great in her small part. And what's his name?
David Strathairn?
Yes. He's also really solid. Rooney Mara is good in the small part that she gets. And so I think, watching the first half unfold, I was really enjoying it. The second half of the movie is where Cate Blanchett's character is introduced in a femme fatale kind of thing. This is where I think it lost me a little bit, where I think the second half of the movie isn't as strong as the first. I do think you get some stuff. I think you get a really great performance in there from
Richard Jenkins, maybe.
yes, thank you. I don't know why I was blanking on Richard Jenkins. And again, it's so well acted, and I think the second half, like the story of it, I think is interesting in that like the grifting becomes very high stakes, and it becomes like a dangerous situation, and his character starts to really kind of go big, I guess you could say, on it, and it becomes like I said, high risk, and I think that part of the story is interesting. I don't know that I think, like I said, I think Cate Blanchett's doing really great work, but I don't know that her character really works for me entirely. Her character's motivations, her character's role within everything, I'm not sure exactly completely works for me. The femme fatale stuff I get, but I'm not sure, the role of what her character does and her, actions and responsibility within it, I don't really know worked for me entirely. That said, the movie wraps up in a way that has my favorite ending of a movie in a long time. I don't even think you'd call it a twist, really. I think it's just sort of like a narrative punctuation that is extremely satisfying. And so I do think that it recovers. I want to watch it again to see if that Cate Blanchett stuff works for me, because I think if I watch it again and it did work better for me, I think it's a surefire top 10 movie of the year for me. As it stands right now, it's probably like in the bottom half of my top 10, but still potentially making it, if at all. But I found myself really enjoying it. It's for Del Toro standards, it's very accessible. Probably,
yeah.
Some of the most successful. I mean, accessible. Shape of Water is weird as shit. It's just it's a weird movie. And then I'm trying to think, I hated Crimson Peak, the one, I think that was the one that he made prior to that.
Yeah.
But
he did Pacific Rim maybe was the biggest, that's his biggest shot at being like a, big summer movie sort of thing.
Yeah, this is the most accessible of his smaller scale individualistic stories, and not something like Pacific Rim that is aiming to be a summer blockbuster kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, his Hellboy movies, I love the style of those, but they're so forgettable. Anyway, I agree with you on all points, except I think I tolerated the second half a little better. It's kind of got that classic storytelling, that sort of rags to riches take, that I think works pretty well. There's a series of there's crosses and double crosses in here. I don't want to get too particular, but I think that works well too. I think the biggest thing that really kind of broke through to me was the Bradley Cooper performance, and the idea that this carny, the hucksters that you're seeing at the carnival weren't the bad guys. It was Bradley Cooper's chasing of greed and stuff that does him in. And that's a real classic, storytelling thing. It just feels obviously it's a remake of an older film, but it just has this classic feel to it that I think was really welcome. And, I was thinking the whole time, it looks gorgeous. This is the kind of movie Tim Burton wishes he could still make. This is right in his wheelhouse.
A mutual friend of ours, James, said the very same thing to me, which was that this is maybe Del Toro's what Tim Burton was supposed to be.
This is Tim Burton could have made this movie 30 years ago, maybe, but now he would try to pull it off and it would fail, and Del Toro really pulls it off. I just think it's really, really well done. There's great callback. It kind of the ending kind of rhymes with the climax of the second act, I think. Just really great performances all around. It's just really satisfying to me. And it's such a goddamn shame that it got thrown into the wood chipper against Spider-Man No Way Home. Because this is clearly an audience Del Toro has a fan base.
Sure.
That I think is a Venn diagram with Spider-Man fans is heavily overlaps.
I think so too, and not only that, but I think that this is a movie that would benefit from a theatrical experience too, just because of like the scope of it and how like incredible it looks. And I think that it would be a great like movie to see in a theater. I mean, I watched it at home, and it was a pretty good stream that I watched, and it just looked amazing. I can't imagine how great it looks on on the big screen. And so they're really doing him dirty here. It's really unfortunate because this is a really good movie, and it's just going to get, and it is getting just completely devoured by
$4 million over the
studio.
weekend. Yeah, it's bizarre to me that it would be so cannibalized like that. On purpose. I mean, this guy whose last film won a fucking Oscar, a genre film that won an Oscar. So, anyway, what's your grade for Nightmare Alley, Cody?
So as is, even with a couple of quibbles in the second half, I'm giving it a B+. Like I said, I do think that it is at the very least a top 15 movie of the year for me. If it sneaks into 10, I wouldn't be surprised, but one of the best 15 movies I've seen this year so far.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with a B+ also. I think it's just really well done, and this is the kind of movie that people lament has gone away. That sort of adult themed thriller. Like, yeah, it's got a it doesn't even have a fantastical setting. It's got like a romanticized setting, and it's that type of movie that people say they want to see, and then the studio dumps it against Spider-Man No Way Home. Oh,
yeah.
So...
Well, yeah. When people lament the death of cinema, like this is like an old school like the feeling of a classic film kind of
but
thing.
It's and I want to preface that by saying or add to that by saying it's not snobby in any way. It's just a straightforward like noir. Like it's not pretentious. It's just a straightforward psychological noir thriller thing. Like there's nothing about this that's like, oh, cinema, it's just a good solid noir movie. And it's getting eviscerated at the box office because Disney was like, fuck it. Oh, it's so sad. Yeah, all right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to our last movie, Licorice Pizza.
God awful small affair to the girl with the mousy hair.
I met the girl I'm gonna marry one day.
But her mommy is yelling no, and her daddy has told her to go.
Listen, young lady.
But her friend is nowhere to be seen.
So how'd you become such a hotshot actor?
She walks through her
I'm a showman. That's what I'm meant to do.
To the seats with the clearest view. And she's hooked to the silver screen.
Do you know who I am?
Yeah.
Do you know who my girlfriend is?
Barbra Streisand?
Barbra Streisand.
Sand.
Sand, yeah, like sands. Like the ocean, like beaches.
Barbra Streisand?
No, like Streisand.
Sand.
But the film is a sad thing for.
This is fate that brought us together.
But she's lived it 10 times or more.
Our roads took us here.
She could spit in the eyes of fools.
You're not my director.
They ask her to focus on.
Do you really want to see my boobs?
Can I touch them?
So this actually hasn't opened yet, at least in San Antonio, right? It's opening Christmas Day. I think it's in some theaters already.
Yeah.
But this is a Christmas release, so we're going to talk about it because we're not going to record a show between now and Christmas. So this is from director Paul Thomas Anderson, our erstwhile colleague here on the CineSnob Podcast, Kiko Martinez's absolute favorite director.
Mm-hmm.
But I have different opinions of some of his stuff. But Cody, tell us about Licorice Pizza and what you thought of it.
Yeah, so I am not the biggest Paul Thomas Anderson fan. I love certain movies like Boogie Nights.
Mm-hmm.
I really love. And then there are certain movies that I'm very indifferent towards, and then there's some movies that I don't really care for. And, we were just talking about Guillermo Del Toro's most accessible movie, and I think this is very, very easily Paul Thomas Anderson's most accessible movie, which is just a hangout movie, kind of. And I think, my first thought after I saw the credits was like, he should maybe leave this to Richard Linklater, because I think this is basically a PTA making a Linklater movie, to me, in my opinion, because it is very sort of like, again, hangout type of thing with lots of music and and that kind of thing, and for me, it sort of is the downfall of the movie, where like there's a bunch of like, it's like a collection of scenes and moments that go nowhere. They're just go nowhere. Like there's like a big climactic scene where the main character, played by Cooper Hoffman, who I'll get into in a minute, like just full on gets arrested mistakenly, and then he's just let go, and then that's like the end of. It's like a 10-minute scene that just like that's like it begins and ends, with him getting arrested and then being let go, and then that's it. There's a storyline with Sean Penn that I don't think really does any good for the movie. I think the movie is sort of at its best when Cooper Hoffman, Philip Seymour Hoffman's son, is just sort of like being a very like charming rascal, who I think him and Alana Haim, I think, are both really good in the movie. There's a lot of like age gap discourse going on that I don't really want to wade into, because it's a thorny subject for a lot of people, and I think there's a lot of film people who don't have a problem with it. In the movie, the character of that Alana Haim plays is 25, and Cooper Hoffman's character is 15, and I think that it is. I fall in the camp that it is slightly problematic. And I think that it's especially so because the character is very specifically 15, and I think they could have it goes into this thing like when you go into Call Me by My Name, for example, that character is 17, I think, like for a reason, because 17 is like on the cusp of that, and this character being 15 is just a little strange to me. I know that the big argument right now is they don't do anything to like consummate the relationship. I don't know if that's entirely accurate, and I also don't know, it's ostensibly a movie about a crush, but typically speaking, a crush isn't reciprocated in that context. Like I've seen people like a babysitter crush kind of thing, but anyway,
right, I understand what you're saying. I do agree with you that it's somewhat problem, because you have a character who's clearly kind of in an arrested development in Alana Haim's character, and then Cooper Hoffman, who is ahead of, like, older than his years. Anyway, I get it, but go ahead.
Yeah, again, it's not something that I think like is a roadblock for me, and like it's not the thing that kept me from loving it or anything like that. I just think that it's slightly problematic. That's about where I'll leave it. I won't take it as far as using the P word for it, that a lot of people who are angry about it are throwing around. Perhaps it starts with the letter Q. But
what?
I'm talking about like a pedophile. I'm not saying it's pedophilic. Like,
I was wondering who the Q was. Are you talking about QAnon?
Yes.
Oh, they got involved?
No, I'm just saying that they would use that word to describe it.
We don't use that word. I mean, they don't use it.
Anyway, getting into the weeds here. But yeah, so for me, it was a collection of scenes, some of which are good, some of which do nothing for me. I think that, again, like Bradley Cooper appears in this movie for like 10 to 15 minutes, is insane, and then fucks off for the rest of the movie. Again, he's great. He's funny. I like that. I think that is probably the best sequence of the movie, but it has no bearing at all on the story, because the story is just about these two people hanging out over the course of a summer in LA, and that's it. And I think it works for someone like Linklater, and I think that for Paul Thomas Anderson, I think there's something deeper he's trying to get at, and I don't see the deeper thing that people are seeing here. Also, The other problematic thing about this movie comes in the way of a horribly racist joke that appears multiple times.
What the fuck was that about?
I don't know. I feel bad for John Michael Higgins who had to perform that. I don't get why that's in the movie at all, because it's definitely not funny. It's just racist, and it's very bizarre.
I mean, it's an incredibly bizarre joke, and it's played completely straight, and then it pops up again. It's so weird. It's such a weird. I don't understand that one, but
yeah, it's very weird. But yeah, so for me, I again, is it enjoyable at times? Yes, it is. But for me, it's really not cohesive, and I don't get the point of all of it. It just doesn't really build to anything. And also, like I said, it feels like a collection of scenes that don't make a full movie. Like, there's an entire subplot of like Benny Safdie's character running for mayor. Like, again, what the fuck? Like, where the fuck? It's like a 10-15 minute diversion. That yes, it shows Alana Haim's character trying to grow up and stuff, but like the whole mayoral subplot thing or whatever, the Congress or whatever it is, it just doesn't do anything for me.
I mean, and that's the part that's like that's pulled from real life too. That character is, is Bradley Cooper plays John Peters, who is notorious in fan circles for wanting to have the Superman movie that Kevin Smith was making.
Kevin Smith story.
Yeah, have a giant spider. Yeah. I think so I ultimately enjoyed watching it. It doesn't add up to anything, like you said. And it reminded me of stuff, like it reminded me of Linklater, of course. It reminds me of obviously, fuck, why am I blanking on it? Dazed and Confused, like the Hangout movie. It has a little bit of Rushmore in it, with the kind of advanced age 15-year-old kid. And then it's got a little bit of like Cameron Crowe, Almost Famous in it. And then it has like, but structure wise, it reminded me a little bit more of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where you have this like idealized Los Angeles. Though Once Upon a Time in Hollywood at least had a little bit more structure to it. This is like an idealized Los Angeles hangout movie, like, and I enjoyed Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but the total movie is way less than the sum of its parts, and that's again true for this movie. There's, like you said, there's a lot of great stuff in here. I think Alana Haim is great. I really like Cooper Hoffman. For some reason, the entirety of the Haim family is in this movie also, which is a little bit strange to me. But I think
the mother of that family was Paul Thomas Anderson's art teacher when he was a kid.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Anyway, I think that there's a lot to enjoy about this movie. There's a lot of just batshit nonsense in it too, like the whole subplot about selling water beds, and then like this 15-year-old opening an arcade, and whatever was happening with the weird stage performance in New York. And I don't know what's going on in half this movie. To say that I didn't enjoy it would be a lie, but I think ultimately it doesn't really, I don't know. It doesn't mean anything. It's just this idealized take of, mid-70s Los Angeles in this sort of forbidden romance that I don't really know is that endearing? I don't know. I never really feel like the two of them. I never really felt like the two of them were meant to be together or anything.
Yeah.
And that really they had anything in common other than sort of being around each other. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that is played up by just Cooper Hoffman's character being like a very persistent kind of guy, and I think maybe she is charmed by him legitimately because of his acting and stuff like that. There's at least some intrigue there, but the whole entrepreneur thing, I don't really understand.
I don't either.
Like that side of things very much. I don't know, man.
Is it supposed to be like played for laughs? Because he's starting these businesses with like 12-year-olds like working the floor. I don't get it. I don't get what it's trying to tell. I don't get what the story is trying to tell here.
Yeah.
I just don't understand the point of it. But I enjoyed it. There's weirdo performances in here from like Tom Waits, and again, Sean Penn plays a William Holden-ish character in a diversion of a scene that is again weird as fuck. Doesn't really mean anything, it seems like. You have a John C. Reilly cameo, like as Herman Munster for some reason, briefly. I don't know. It's a strange movie. It's enjoyable, but it means absolutely nothing to me.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, what's your grade for Licorice Pizza, Cody?
I'm going back to the well with a C+. I don't think that the like you talked about the whole and the sum of its parts, and I just don't think that as a cohesive full picture movie it just doesn't add up enough to me, and there's not enough of the great scenes that are in there. I think don't outweigh the scenes that feel like where I feel like I don't know what's going on or why it's serving its purpose. So
yeah, I'm gonna go with a B-. I think that encapsulates what I was thinking. It's enjoyable enough, but it doesn't mean enough for me to feel like the movie was anything other than just a 2.5-hour hangout session with some people that I don't necessarily understand.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's going to do it for this week. Let's not promise anything for next time, Cody, because who knows when that'll be. So if you want to reach us. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say there's just some stuff that maybe we'll cover, maybe we won't, but we've got a new Matrix movie coming out next week, as well as there's some like award movie stuff that's opening here, like Red Rocket opens in January, which I watched recently, and then early January also has the Scream, which I've actually never seen Scream before. Really? Or any of the Screams. Yeah,
that's weird to me. You know what? That showed my age too, because we made a Scream parody commercial for work. And like half the young people are like, I don't know what this is.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't into horror as a kid, and I think the first Scream came out in what, like the mid 90s, like 96 or something.
Yeah.
And I was 7, so
it's such a it's hard to really understand the impact that had then, because everything's been kind of cynical and self-deprecating and meta since then. But it was like the first real, like, sort of postmodern horror movie, like where it spent, commented on the genre and made fun of it and sent it up and was also a good horror movie.
I'm familiar with the Parody and Scary Movie.
By the way, if you're gonna watch there's 4 Scream movies out now. If you watch the third one is probably the worst. It has a legit cameo from Jay and Silent Bob playing Jay and Silent Bob. It's so stupid. It's so bizarre. It's so stupid. Like it's literally Jay and Silent Bob, making fun of Courtney Cox's character for some reason.
Fun.
That was the old Miramax days. That's why that happened. Anyway, if you want to reach us, you can email us at podcast@cinesnob.net. Find us on Twitter at CineSnob, Facebook, CineSnobNet, YouTube.com/CineSnob. Cody, anything else before we go?
The Ramble is back in limited capacity. Jerry is through his surgeries and
awesome.
Looks like cancer free for as is right now. He's doing another round of chemo just to make sure, but looks like Jerry's doing well. So
good news. That's good to hear.
We've got will this show up in here? There's some Jerry icons that our
wow.
friend Capone put on here.
Wow, nice.
But yeah,
did he have to install that here in the chat, or is that something you just cut and paste? I'm curious.
I don't know enough about Twitch.
Okay.
I know they're icons or whatever from Jerry's page, but But yeah, so everything's looking pretty good for him. We're just sort of like, we're recording when he's feeling up to it, as he gets through this last round of chemo. So
yeah, I see he has a terrible mustache now. So yeah, that's good. Good to see. All right. Well, on that note, I'm Jerrod Kingery.
I'm Cody Villafana.
Thank you for listening to the CineSnob Podcast. To read reviews, interviews, and more, visit CineSnob.net. See you next week.